I did have extremely tight calves, which affected all number of other movements. But definitely since changing to barefoot technology shoes, my legs have stretched out, my posture is far better, and if I do run, which is rare and I won't go into that, but if I do run, I'll maybe do like a mile or a mile and a half, I definitely feel much more upright, my posture is much better, I'm much more efficient when I run. Speed wise I wouldn't know, because I don't actually do high level running anymore. So I think in general though, if you think about most people don't actually compete to a very high level. So this argument is more for the general public. I'm not putting this towards elite runners, because that would mean changing an entire style. But it does lead me on to the fact that if you decide that you want to go for barefoot shoes, you have to look at your technique, because you can't just go straight into wearing barefoot shoes and running, because you've got a lot of corrections to be made in your body. You've got a lot of stretching to do to certain muscles. You're probably going to go through a phase of getting aches in different areas. But most importantly, you've got to retrain yourself, because you'll have that movement pattern, that nerve-based movement pattern that you've had for years, and you're retraining it, which is going to take time. So if I talk from my own perspective, I started wearing, these are called Vibram Fivefingers, and some people call them toe shoes, but they're called Vibram Fivefingers. And I'm normally, if I get you here, I'm normally barefoot most of the time. When I'm at home, when I'm on holiday, I try to be as barefoot as much as possible, just because I feel better for that. But if I'm going out, if I'm going to be walking on tarmac, then I do love the Vibrams. The reason I love the Vibrams is because I just thought I'd give them a whirl. And so last November, I started wearing them with a very open mind, because I thought, yeah, all right then, whatever. And actually, within about a month, the difference was huge. Not just to the way I train, but to the way my legs feel at the end of a day, having stood up all day, and I can be on my feet for, well, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the evening, and absolutely no aching in my legs. So I actually wear those about 95% of the time. I'm not that fashion conscious that I actually care what people think. So for me, the only time I wear shoes is when I'm wearing a suit. I will occasionally just throw on a pair of trainers, but I mean, it'd be rare to catch me in trainers these days, because I've noticed the benefit. Now the argument comes in where you've got a lot of people like podiatrists and people who work with feet who are saying that they're seeing a growing number of injuries, of stress fractures into the metatarsal heads. So if we take the underside of the foot and we turn it there, this is the underside, bottom of your foot, the bit that will connect with the ground, they're seeing more and more stress fractures here. Now if you're running that way, that would make sense. You know, you're going to hit that area first. And they're saying that's the main problem they're seeing. Well, I see people wearing trainers every day, and they have all manner of injuries. They have stress fractures to here, they have ligament strains, they have problems with their knees because their feet aren't functioning properly, they have strains to these parts of the foot here. A common one is where the navicular, this bone here, actually drops down, and they get a lot of swelling underneath, and I actually have to adjust that joint to get it to start to heal. Lots of issues within the actual ankle joint itself. This one doesn't move, apologies, but here you get a lot of locking of that joint and swelling around the tendons that all run around the joint there. So from my own personal perspective, I would argue in favour of barefoot. But if you're a runner, if you're a triathlete, if you're anyone who's doing a sport or going to take up a sport, you have to build into it. Don't just throw them on. Don't do what I did, because I'm a bit stupid like that sometimes, and I just like to put things to the test. Plus, I've been barefoot in many sports in the past, so I knew my system was kind of a bit used to it anyway. But even I, after 2 or 3 weeks, got a little ache in my back, which I had to stretch out and stretch through. But since then, my posture, and I've been bolt upright, much more upright, which is fantastic. But you need to be taking into account that if you are going to do that, you need to build the density in your bone, and this is where this argument, I think, falls down. The stress fractures are probably occurring because people are just being silly, and they're going out and they're running miles and miles and miles with this new shoe, having worn other shoes for years, and expect that everything's going to be okay. the thing is, having worn that shoe for years, the chances are they've decreased the density in their bone. This could also be related to diet, but if you're not using your foot properly, as we said at the start, you're not getting the blood flow going through, so you're going to have to build that up again. Again, if I take back to my own example, my right foot, the arch had dropped, and I used to have to get that adjusted quite a lot, and about the third time I ran in them, I got a lot of aching up the inside of my calf. I was actually in the steam room afterwards, and I cracked the inside of my foot myself, and actually that was last February, and I don't think I've had any issue with my foot since then. I think the arch is corrected. I don't have any stretch or cramping under that tendon and in the plantar fascia underneath, which is another common injury that you get with lots of distance running. So I would say definitely look into it yourself. If we actually go back to the book Born to Run, that's a good read. It's an enjoyable read. It's not too in-depth with the mechanics. It's more of a story, so it gives you a base behind the idea of why this guy believes barefoot running is good. He actually went off and saw an ultra running marathon tribe called the Tarahumara, who live in Mexico, and actually went and ran with them. Got lucky enough to be taken in by someone who knows them, ran with them, and actually ran through his own problems and learnt to rerun. Because he was told to just give up running. And the Tarahumara will just go out for 100-mile runs. They'll just suddenly decide one day they're going for a 100-mile run, and all they have is a thin rubber sole that they get, and then they make a sandal out of it. So they just tie some vine or whatever around the top, and they make their own shoes. But that's it. It's a bit of rubber, so their foot is actually free to be barefoot, but it protects them in the rocks and on the sharper surfaces. So if you suffer with standard injuries like that, definitely consider it. Obviously, if you're under guidance from a doctor or consultant, then you might have to talk to them first. But I think if you open your mind to the idea, my conclusion or my position from having worked with these shoes for a year, I don't like shoes anymore. It's that plain and simple. I will wear them when I need to, but I much prefer this kind of shoe. Obviously, if I was working in a factory, I'd have to have a steel toe cap shoe, but you've got different types of Vibrams. There are other makes. There's something called Terraplana, which are more of a shoe. You've got, I think it's Vivo Barefoot, which are a shoe as well, and you've got ones called, I think it is Morels. And they're more like a trainer with a bulbous end. Now, they are still barefoot technology as well, but I don't think it gives you the same freedom of movement of your toes that a Vibram does. These are what I tend to wear most days. These are called KSOs. They've just got a rubber sole with a little grip in it and material on top, and I just slip those on and tie them up with the Velcro strap. And black pair, same thing. And then I've got for training Trek Sports, so they've got a little bit more of a grip. So these are the kinds of thing you might want to wear if you were doing road running. And as I say, if you were road running, you've got to build into it. Don't just suddenly start and go pounding the road. But I believe it was 2009. I think the Ironman champion wore them. So shows they can be worn over long distances. So yeah, if you've got any specific questions, and that's probably one more for the people who are more active. However, if you just like going walking, they are a bit weird to get used to, but once you get used to them, they're definitely worth the, I think, worth the money. And you may find that if you're not too bothered about what people think, then you may well change over to wearing them. The one thing I would say though is learn a little bit about barefoot mechanics, and because people are going to keep asking you questions all the time. And get used to seeing a few nudges and winks and other people going, what the hell's on that guy's foot? But that's part of the fun, and then I get to bore people for 10 minutes. So yeah, see how you go with that. It's a big, huge topic, and I've tried to condense it into a short period of time, so sorry if I was talking a bit fast, but there was quite a lot to get in there. So any questions, send me some questions. And other than that, I think just digest the information. and hopefully I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.